Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, as we continue our journey through the 23rd District, I'd like to travel to a small town some 40 miles west of San Antonio. That would be Hondo, Texas. It's about 9.6 square miles of iconic America, and as you pass the city boundary, you're kindly reminded by a sign, "This is God's country. Please don't drive through it like hell." That sign, erected by the local Lions Club in 1930, deters speeders. It has been featured on postcards, is the subject of many photos sent home by tourists, and it even made the cover of National Geographic magazine. I remember that sign even as a little kid, long before I-10 was built and when Highway 90 through Hondo was still the main thoroughfare, the east-west highway from LA to Florida. Actually, the original sign just read, "This is God's country, don't drive through it like hell." But as you might imagine, it was a somewhat controversial sign for the 1930s. And so finally, in the 1940s, the word please was added to soften the tone and to placate those in town who found the sign a bit too harsh. Today, some 84 years after its installation, that sign still serves as a not-so-subtle reminder to slow down and perhaps to take a breath from the everyday rush of life and enjoy the little things like family and friends and God and country. Though settled in 1891, the Hondo area, which is now located in Medina County, was first explored by Cabeza de Vaca in 1519, only some 27 years after Columbus arrived in the New World. It displaced Castroville as the county seat, and Hondo shares a place in history with the many early Americans who built this nation through sheer sweat and determination. With the construction of the Galveston, Harrisburg, and San Antonio Railway that was built through the county from the east in 1881, Hondo quickly transformed from a small 25-resident settlement into a trade shipping center for agriculture and ranching. Hondo was the scene of two bank robberies in the early 1920s. The crooks were for the famed Newton Gang, the most successful outlaws in American history. And interestingly, both bank heists occurred the same night. Hondo itself was incorporated as a city in 1942. And at that time, Hondo applied for a U.S. Army air training facility to be built there. When our nation was in need, they stepped up. The Hondo Army Airfield was constructed with local funding in 89 days, and it opened on July 4th of 1942. That airfield would become the largest air navigation school in the world and would eventually train over 15,000 navigators to serve in World War II. That airfield still exists, and though it is no longer affiliated with the U.S. military, today, that airfield is a regional facility and one of the busiest small commercial airports in Texas. Mayor James Danner and the city leadership there in Hondo have done a phenomenal job of developing the airfield into a center of transportation and commerce. If your business needs a small airport near San Antonio and not too far from Eagle Ford Shale Country, check out the airport in Hondo. In addition, that airfield is home to one of the largest and most fun and entertaining air shows in Central Texas, and certainly the best air show in all of Congressional District 23. Each year, thousands of airplane enthusiasts descend on Hondo for the air show, which last year featured more than 20 or so World War II-era airplanes. Another feature of the air show was an exhibition called Tora Tora Tora, a smaller but incredibly well-done reenactment of the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor in 1981, which was done using these vintage airplanes. It's a great event to take your kids and your grandkids to. Hondo's a town of living history with many of its residents still descendants of the original settlers. It's a town not lost in the rush of everyday life, and like much of the Texas 23rd District, its connection and commitment to the U.S. military runs deep through its veins. I invite everyone to take a trip to Hondo and experience iconic America. And remember, this is God's country. Please don't drive through it like hell. Mr. Speaker, I yield back.